Hi, it's Kate from the Griswold Memorial Library in Colrain, Massachusetts. I am coming to you today from my garden. I'm not at the library. I'm hiding away in my bean tower because it's a little shady in here. These are scarlet runner beans that I grow, and I'm in this sort of fortress. And I wanted to make this video to show people at the beginner level how you can grow garlic. If you're interested in some more technical knowledge around soil science, growing different varieties of garlic, learning more about how to propagate garlic, we can help you out with some resources at the library. But for today, what we're actually focused on is just how simple and easy and fun it is to grow garlic. So if you are interested in trying this at home, what you need is seed, garlic seed, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. You need a location that's prepared, and you need a basic sense of the timeline and the life cycle of the garlic plant. All right, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about garlic seed. So there's really nothing, garlic seed is really just garlic. You would want to make sure if you're acquiring some garlic seed that you get garlic that, I'd recommend using organic, but you don't really want to use garlic that's been commercially grown because it could have been treated with some chemicals that prevent it from spoiling, but those chemicals also prevent it from growing. So the best way to access garlic seed is through, you can get it from a neighbor or a friend or a family member, or you can get it from a farmer's market. We have so many wonderful markets around here. I would recommend going to the farmer's market to get your seed, and there's typically actually a huge garlic festival, and you can get garlic there too. So here's some garlic that I grow. I originally got this seed stock from a friend, and I've been using this type, I think, for almost 15 years. I've been growing this variety in this location. I recommend hardneck. Garlic can come in hardneck or softneck varieties. Hardneck does well in this climate in western Massachusetts. It stores really well, and you can try softneck varieties if you like, but I find hardneck works well. And so this is one that I grow. It's really beautiful because there's a little purple hue to the paper, which I enjoy. Here's another variety that I grow, really just because it has an amazing yield. These are really big bulbs, lots of cloves. The paper is really easy to peel off. So I grow this variety, which I acquired from a farmer's market a few years ago, and then I've been growing this every year. I have another variety right here that is just a nice big bulb that has four solid cloves. And then here's another one that I grow just for fun. This is a little tiny variety. And I got this seed from a neighbor one year, and I just keep growing this for fun. All right, so that's your seed. So you can make sure you get some garlic seed, and then what you're going to do when you go to plant the seed is you break apart, when you go to plant your garlic, you break apart the bulb. This is the head or the bulb. You break apart the individual cloves, and you plant one clove, and then this one clove will grow eventually into a big head like this. All right, so that was seed. Next, I will talk to you a little bit about location. So you can grow in a garden bed, which is recommended. Garlic does well in a sandy soil, a little bit loose soil. If your soil is really hard packed, you might want to you may just make sure it's worked. Make sure you work the soil really well. Work some organic material into that, so that the garlic really has room and space to. So these cloves have room and space to expand within the soil. You can use a raised bed. That works great. You can actually even try container planting garlic if you want. I would just make sure, if you're going to do that, that you use a rather large container. Make sure the garlic has plenty of room and it's not crowded. And make sure your container is really deep. I'd go 8 or 10 inches at least deep if you're going to try to do some container planting with garlic. Just a note about fertilization. I have really rich soil, and so what I do is I do 1 round of fertilization in the spring, and then I usually plant something else in the bed, maybe squash, maybe potatoes, maybe carrots, and you know, after I harvest that crop in the fall, I don't actually fertilize again before I plant my garlic. If your soil is not as rich, or if you're using a raised bed or a container, we would want to make sure to add some kind of composted, well composted material, or some other type of fertilizer before you plant your garlic. A lot of people recommend a slow release fertilizer for garlic since it has such a long growing season, because if you're planting right into the ground and there's too much nitrogen, that could cause problems. So yeah, make sure you have a great location picked out for your garlic that you want to grow. And then finally, a word about timing and the life cycle of garlic. So as I said before, the way you grow garlic is you plant one of these cloves in the fall. You can do it at the end of September. It's recommended probably to wait until October. October really is the greatest month to plant garlic. You can go as late as mid-November. So sometime between, you know, end of September through mid-November, early mid-November, you can do the planting. And then what you're going to do when you plant the garlic is you want to plant the cloves about 6 inches apart minimum. You can do more than that. It's best not to crowd too much, or else if you crowd it, your bulbs will really struggle to grow large. You'll have smaller bulbs if you plant it too close together. I tend to do a 6x6 grid, and maybe rows 18, 24 inches apart. Put a little walkway in the middle of my rows. So I'll plant a bunch of, you know, a couple feet of 6x6 cloves, have a walking row of maybe 12 inches, and then have another section of 18 to 24 inches of these cloves planted in a 6x6 grid. So you want to plant them 6x6 and about 3 inches deep. You don't need to get the ruler out. I mean, I plant them about as deep as my thumb, and that works for me. And then what you need to make sure you do when you're planting your garlic is you want to plant it with this little stem. You want to plant the clove with this stem end down and the pointy end up. So as the garlic clove comes off the bulb here, this is the bottom. Down here, this is the top. You want to make sure you plant your garlic clove in there the right way, or else it will be struggling to grow upwards. So the timing is get it in October. You're going to plant 6 inches apart, about 3 inches deep, and then you definitely want to put a heavy layer of mulch on top of the area that's been planted. I use old hay. Occasionally we use leaves we've raked from the yard, but you really want a thick layer, and you want to press it down pretty firmly. That helps keep mice from getting in there, and it helps the frost from getting in there, and it helps with weed control. So you're going to plant in October, you're going to mulch, you're going to let that garlic overwinter. In maybe end of March, early April, you'll see garlic is usually the first thing that starts poking up in the garden in the spring, and so your shoots will start coming up. You might need to do a couple rounds of weeding. You might not. I usually end up weeding about twice. I'll weed generally once in May, and then again probably at the end of June I'll do another weeding session. But if you mulch really heavily, you don't need to weed very much. So your plants will start growing in the spring. By June, the stalks will be tall, probably knee-high, maybe higher. And what happens is the bulb, the garlic bulb, well, your clove starts growing. It starts forming this bulb-like shape, and there's a central, there's a stalk, And then there's a central stem that comes out. It's called a garlic scape. It looks like a big green snake with kind of a pointy tip to it. And in June, what you're going to want to do is cut those scapes at the base of the leaves. If you don't cut the scape, what will happen is that stalk will continue to grow. It will create a kind of a bulbous flower, and all the energy from that the plant has stored will go into creating that flower stalk, and it won't go in, not as much energy will go into making your garlic larger. And so it's recommended that you cut those scapes usually in June when they're about a foot long or so. You want to go through and snip those scapes off. And then a final word on the timing is, when do you harvest? How do you know when it's time to harvest? Usually July is when garlic is ready to harvest. Towards the beginning of the month, after 4th of July, I'll start pulling out 1 or 2 cloves at a time from my bed and just check the size and the formation of the bulb. If you harvest too early, your garlic will be kind of smaller. If you harvest too late, this is what happens. The cloves will start to split open like this. So if your cloves are starting to split open like this, you've waited a little too long to harvest and pull it right out of there. So usually garlic's ready to harvest mid-July, sometimes 3rd week of July. And after you harvest, what you want to do, especially if you have a larger harvest, is after you pull all your garlic out of the ground, you want to knock the dirt off. You'll have long roots streaming off of here. You'll have a big stalk, you know, on the other end. You want to dry it really well. I usually set my garlic out on newspaper in a single layer for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks. And then after the leaves have dried, turned brown and dried, then I trim it up. I snip off the top, I snip off the roots, and I pull off the dirtiest part of the paper so that I have a nice looking product like this. So, are you excited to grow some garlic? I know I am. So we talked about the seed, acquiring garlic seed. We talked about great locations for planting garlic, and then we talked about this timeline of planting in October, letting it overwinter, cutting the scapes in June, harvesting in July. That's all there is to it. So if you have any further questions about how to grow garlic, feel free to contact me at the library. And I am happy to share any other tips or advice. And as I said earlier, if you're interested in getting more technical, you can do that. But it's really not necessary. It can be really easy and satisfying and fun to grow your own garlic. So I hope you give it a try.